Discover the incredible moment when a little girl's touch transforms a millionaire's crying son. On a sun-drenched afternoon in their small Midwest town, Emily felt her heart race with excitement. The park was a colorful tapestry of laughter and joy, but there in the shadow of the swings sat a boy alone, Jacob, the son of the businessman everyone knew. Tears streaked his cheeks, carving trails down a face that echoed confusion and despair. Emily, small and unaware of the weight Jacob carried, stepped closer. Instinctively, her hand gripped a stick adorned with a smiley face, a child's treasure meant to spread joy. "Want to be friends?" she asked, her voice clear and hopeful. To her, he was just another kid. But that stick, that innocent offering, struck Jacob like an unexpected gust of wind, an intrusion into his gilded isolation. For Jacob, every breath felt like an anchor, dragging him deeper. His father's expectations loomed over him like dark clouds, suffocating. He couldn't understand why a simple act of kindness felt like a prison break. As he held the stick, design flaws of his privileged life began to unravel. Emily's dreams whispered through their conversations, things like wanting to be a writer or an astronaut. Here was a girl who dared to dream without the confines of fatherly expectations. As they played, she became a mirror reflecting everything he lacked, joy mingling with the bitter taste of truth. But the burden of Jacob's reality stormed back when his father caught wind of his newfound friend. A simple evening turned into a battleground when Mr. Foster, all polished shoes and sharp lines, sat his son down. "Jacob, you're better than this," he barked, thrusting a heavy gaze that felt like a branding. "This little girl, she's just someone you shouldn't be associating with." The words wrapped around Jacob like a noose, constricting, tightening with every syllable. Torn between filial loyalty and a burgeoning friendship that felt like freedom, he felt caught in a web of expectation that threatened to suffocate him. The weight pressed on Emily too. The whispers of her peers twisted the joy of her friendship with Jacob, seeping doubt into her heart. "Why are you with him? Yes, not like us." The challenge of belonging hung heavily in the air, sharp as shattered glass. Each remark bruised her spirit, igniting a cocktail of uncertainty and courage within her. Was she worthy? Was friendship only a bridge too far for someone from an important family? But Jacob's sadness, his gentle spirit within that polished exterior, drew Emily closer. "Despite the judgment, before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The emotional chasm between them widened, filled with the tensions of socio-economic differences. Emily felt twinges of self-doubt gnaw at her. Were her simple joys enough to bridge this divide? On one fateful day, the weight seemed unbearable, and she pushed Jacob to confront his father. "You have to be you, Jacob." Not just the Foster name, but the words hung heavy in the air, echoing her own struggles against judgments she faced. For Jacob, the thought of discourse with his father felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss of uncertainty. That moment of anguish hung like a storm cloud over their friendship, stirring restless hearts. Would Jacob fight for authenticity, risking everything? And could Emily summon the strength to embrace who she was, regardless of others' perceptions? As they stood on the threshold of their choices, the horizon loomed vast and uncertain, poised for transformation, yet the answer evaded them, leaving trails of tension fluttering in the wind. Jacob leaned against the rough bark of a tree in the park, the sounds of children playing a surreal backdrop to the turmoil inside him. He clutched the smiley face stick Emily had given him, its cheerful exterior a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing within. Why had he let his father's words pierce him like arrows? The need for approval had always defined him, but now, standing in the shadow of the immense looming tree, he could feel the roots of doubt wrapping around him, tightening with every passing moment. What did it mean to be Jacob Foster? Beneath the polished exterior lay an unformed identity, caught like Play-Doh that had yet to be shaped. He recalled the simplicity in Emily's voice, her steadfast belief that he was more than just a name, an emblem of privilege. But the shadow of his father's expectations clamored in his mind. "You're better than this. You have a future to uphold." How could he chase dreams when he felt shackled by duty? Across the park, Emily watched Jacob, her heart heavy with the weight of their unspoken truths. She felt that familiar unease creep in. Would he come back? Or had the glittering walls of his world already swallowed him whole? Her confidence faltered with every snicker or whisper from her peers. "She's not like us," they would say, as if camaraderie came prepackaged with the right material markers. Still, there was a fire ignited by Jacob's sadness, a beacon calling her to step beyond the threshold of judgment and face the storm together. The thought of his father's disappointment felt akin to standing before a chasm. Jacob questioned his fate. Could he confront him? Did the fear of losing everything keep him from gaining the one thing he craved the most: authenticity? Though Emily urged him toward freedom, believing in his potential, the concept was delicate and elusive. Wasn't he the idea of chasing dreams recklessly naive? And that's when the weight of his silence crystallized into resolve. He pictured his father's scrutinizing gaze, a mantle he had worn like armor for far too long. Each harsh expectation transformed into a reminder of his own want for liberation. The fear simmered, turning to courage like a flame flickering to life in the shadows. That it was time. "Jacob." Emily's voice broke through his thoughts, infused with urgency. She approached him, eyes wide with determination. "You can't just let him dictate your life. You are not just Jacob Foster. You are so much more." Her words sparked something within him, a flicker of hope. He contemplated the enormity of that statement. What if he truly embraced who he was beyond the confines of the Foster legacy? What if he could navigate the rich tapestry of his inner world, colored by dreams and aspirations apart from what others expected of him? In that moment, the chains he had wrapped around himself clattered to the ground, each link clanking loudly against the reality he'd accepted thus far. "You're right," he breathed, the words cocooned in both fear and exhilaration. He turned toward Emily, eyes lit with burgeoning rebellion. "I will talk to him not just as Jacob Foster but as myself." Emily beamed, a sense of solidarity weaving between them, yet she feared what came next. Her own uncertainties beckoned. How would she maintain her resolve amid the judgment of her peers? Would she find the strength needed to stand by Jacob, regardless of the repercussions? Together they would confront their realities, but the path to liberation was fraught with obstacles. In that fleeting moment, their resolve remained fragile yet shimmering, like morning dew catching the light. As they prepared to face their respective battles, little did they know this very confrontation would not only define them but also illuminate profoundly buried truths. Tomorrow came with promise and peril, each a mirror reflecting the choices they would make. How they walked that path remained an untold adventure, one that could either bind them in the chains of expectation, or set them free in unimaginable ways. The air crackled with tension as they prepared to take a step into the unknown, bound not just by friendship but a shared yearning for authenticity. Would they find courage in the face of expectation, or would the weight of the world hold them back? Uncertainty dripped from their decision, each second pregnant with possibility. Jacob woke with the dawn, its golden light spilling through his bedroom window, illuminating the carefully curated shelves his parents had filled with trophies and accolades. Each gleaming surface reflected a life designed by society's standards, a life he felt increasingly detached from. He rolled over, feeling like a stranger in his own skin, and at that moment, he realized that today's confrontation with his father held all the weight of an impending tempest. He dressed mechanically, the fabric of his shirt scratching against his skin like a reminder of the expectations it upheld. Once again, he pondered if tradition could stifle individuality, and if merely obeying the scripts handed down by his father had left him voiceless. Breaking those ties felt both exhilarating and terrifying, a duality he struggled to reconcile. Before heading downstairs, Jacob paused in front of the mirror, allowing himself to hope. Maybe today would be the day he stepped into his own light, and the reflection staring back at him was more than just Jacob Foster, the son of Benjamin Foster, the patriarch. Yet, hope was masked in trepidation, and he questioned whether the courage he felt was genuine or simply a fleeting moment of rebellion. In the kitchen, his father towered over the polished counter, reviewing documents as the newspaper lay sprawled beside him, an old empire's foundation stretching out in ink. Jacob sensed his father's all-encompassing presence, the authority palpable in the crisp morning air. Deep down, he dreaded the impending conversation. This was what constant expectations had wrought. Quiet despair warped by a lifetime of unfulfilled emotions. "Morning, Jacob," Benjamin greeted, his voice flat yet resonant with authority. "We need to go over your commitments for the upcoming gala." This was it, the opening Jacob had feared and awaited in equal measure. "Dad, can we talk?" His voice trembled. Awareness of vulnerability surged through him. How could he bear to speak up when living under his father's shadow had been so deeply ingrained? Benjamin didn't look up, dismissiveness radiating from his tone. "Not now, Jacob. We have a schedule to keep." There it was, the impenetrable wall of duty, woven with expectations, that had stood between them ever since Jacob could remember. But the flicker of determination that had ignited yesterday refused to dim. Jacob took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of fortitude. "No, we need to talk now. It's important." The words hung in the air, heavier than Jacob had anticipated. For a moment, silence stretched between them, as if the universe itself paused to acknowledge their emotional standoff. His father finally turned, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Jacob saw something more than controlled power in his father's eyes. There was curiosity, even a flicker of alarm. "What's going on?" Benjamin asked, the subtle shift in his posture indicating that Jacob's resolve was stirring something deep within. "I want to talk about my future, not the one you've planned for me, but the one I want. I need to figure out who I am beyond being your son." The words flowed out in a rush, an uncoiling of tension that had knotted his heart for so long. The air thickened with uncertainty, and Jacob braced for an avalanche of disapproval, but his father's brow furrowed instead, as if assessing uncharted territory. Finding courage wasn't just for him. It was an invitation for Benjamin to question his own deeply rooted ideals. "Jacob," Benjamin started, his voice wavering slightly, "you've always been destined for greatness, to uphold our family's name. What if greatness means something different for me?" Jacob interrupted, a spark igniting within him. "What if I want to make my own mark, one that has nothing to do with our legacy?" The silence that followed was punctuated only by a distant clock ticking down the moments of change. Jacob stood firmly, torn between the fragile hope of connection and the looming threat of rejection. Was it possible to redefine success, or would this attempt fracture their bond irreparably? As the heaviness enveloped them both, Jacob sensed the suffocating layers of expectation beginning to shift. Today could be the dawn of transformation, or the return to painful patterns. With palms clammy and heart racing, he braced himself for his father's response, uncertain if he would encounter acceptance or wrath. The moment had arrived. Would it shape a new understanding or plunge them back into silence? As the answer teetered on the precipice of revelation, one truth remained. The conversation had only just begun. The silence was absolute. Jacob held his breath, deeply aware of the weighty seconds stretching out between them. Benjamin's gaze shifted, betraying an internal conflict Jacob hadn't anticipated. In that instant, Jacob's heart fluttered with cautious optimism, yearning to believe that something profound had begun to shift in their relationship. "Do you really think you can just walk away from all of this?" Benjamin's voice was low, tinged with disbelief but edged with an undercurrent of concern. Jacob noticed the way his father's grip on the counter tightened, the earlier authority giving way to vulnerability. "Walking away isn't what I want," Jacob replied, finding his voice steadier than he expected. "I want to take the reins of my life. I don't want to merely manage your expectations." For the first time, Jacob felt he could articulate his thoughts without being ensnared in fear or inadequacy. It felt exhilarating and terrifying, like standing on the precipice of a great chasm. Would he leap or retreat back to the safety of familiarity? "Your mother and I have sacrificed so much for you to have the opportunities you're faced with," Benjamin pressed, the tension layering over his words. Each syllable felt like a brick, solidifying the wall Jacob had fought against for so long. "I know." Jacob let the acknowledgement settle briefly before he pushed back. "But success shouldn't come at the price of my happiness. You see all these trophies?" He gestured toward the well-polished items on the shelf. "They don't mean anything to me if they aren't my own achievements." Benjamin's brow furrowed further, yet Jacob sensed a crack forming in his father's steadfast defenses. Jacob had seen that expression before, not often, but when his father struggled to understand something that pressed against the boundaries of his rigid views. It was almost invigorating, and Jacob took the risk of broaching deeper ground. I want to pursue my passions, Dad. My love for art, or maybe travel or even writing. Just something authentic to me. The conviction in Jacob's voice surprised even him. The excitement coursing through him overlaid the dread of potential rejection, making his heart race. How can you abandon what we've built? Benjamin's voice quivered, a hint of desperation creeping in. You'd be throwing it all away. You're throwing me away. For an instant, Jacob's resolve wavered. His father's fear echoed unsettlingly within him, binding them in a way he never wished. The undercurrent of Benjamin's expectations had always kept Jacob tethered, but the realization hit like a lightning bolt. It wasn't just his father's fear he had to confront. It was his own myriad of doubts and insecurities about worthiness, independence, and identity. I don't want to throw you away. But I can't continue denying who I am. And I can't live this lie any longer. Jacob's voice was firm now, brimming with a newfound clarity. And maybe you don't understand, but I'm ready to find out what I'm capable of on my own terms. The room grew heavy with the silence that followed, both men grappling with the enormity of the words exchanged. Jacob observed his father, a complex emotional tapestry flickering across his features: confusion, concern, and something akin to fear. Then, unexpectedly, Benjamin's expression softened momentarily, an uncertain recognition of Jacob's burgeoning independence. Jacob's heart surged. The flicker of hope had transformed into a flame, an undeniable fire to be reckoned with. Just promise me you'll think it through, Benjamin finally said. His tone less combative, more an edge of pleading. Don't rush into anything. Life outside of this can be daunting. Jacob finished for him, I know. But I can't hold back. I want to discover who I can be, what I can create, without being a shadow of someone else. The ground beneath them felt like it had shifted just enough, but at what cost? As they stood framed by the morning light, Jacob knew he had set off a chain reaction, one that could either reforge their relationship or fracture it further. But deep down he understood that this was merely the beginning of a journey that could lead him to the life he had longed for, or push him deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. The prospect of his first step into that new world was both daunting and exhilarating. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on a knife's edge. Could they both balance their fears on this new trajectory? Or would they tumble further from each other? With the tension hanging thick in the air, Jacob knew the confrontation he had initiated was only the prelude to deeper revelations yet to come. How much would they both have to sacrifice before understanding could take root? A new truth awaited them just beyond the horizon, and Jacob felt the stirring of determination begin to cloud out his earlier doubts. The real test was only beginning, and both father and son were about to unearth the buried layers of their complex connection. Jacob walked away from the kitchen, his heart still pounding from the confrontation. He had ignited a conversation that felt monumental, yet the aftermath left him in a state of swirling uncertainty. Each footfall seemed to echo his internal conflict, the echoes of his father's words lingering like a ghost, urging him to double back. Yet, retreating felt impossible now. A door had edged open, unveiling possibilities he could scarcely fathom. Just days before as he stepped into his room, he looked around the familiar clutter of art supplies strewn across his desk, remnants of half-finished sketches, and the staleness of unresolved aspirations weighed heavy on him. Would he really have the courage to transform these remains of aspiration into a tangible journey? He sank onto his bed, staring up at the ceiling, allowing the quiet to envelop him. A myriad of thoughts surged through him: the thrill of potential, the fear of failure, and the undeniable urge to carve out his identity. What if he found success but it wasn't what he expected? The truth felt hauntingly blurred. Finding clarity often requires documenting thoughts, so he turned to the journal he'd kept since adolescence. The pages were filled with dreams of vibrant cities, strokes of brush against canvas, and words tumbling into a cascade of stories. Could they be more than words? As he opened the book, his eyes caught sight of an entry he recalled vividly. What if I have to abandon the life others want for me? Felt prophetic now. He began writing again, pouring thoughts onto the page, grappling with dreams that felt foreign and exhilarating. Each word was an anchor, pulling him closer to an identity he had only started to glimpse. The questions bubbled forth. What did happiness truly look like for him? Was it bound to the structure his father had laid down? Concepts of art, travel and self-expression intertwined with nightmares of inadequacy. Without hesitation, he penned an idea, his first steps into creating a blog dedicated to art and travel. It was a wild thought, but within this excitement lay the uncomfortable gnawing of self-doubt. Could he actually share his experiences when he felt unpolished, unworthy? Writing them down was easy, but exposing them to the world felt different. It felt akin to standing in front of a crowd, stark naked, as the urgent judgment of a million eyes sought to dissect his very essence. Yet in that moment Jacob experienced a flicker of resolve. Uncertainty could not hold him hostage. Perhaps the act of creating art, of documenting his journey through a blog, would serve as a shield against the slings of critical eyes. He imagined embarking on adventures, scouring galleries for inspiration, hiking through landscapes, letting the muse of travel shape his artistry. But this venture would demand vulnerability. To succeed, he needed to confront familial expectations directly with Benjamin, as a tangible reminder of what was at stake. Turning the page, he penned a letter to his father, a vivid mapping of his thoughts, the risks he intended to take, the desires he wished to pursue. "Dad," he wrote, "I know our perspectives clash, but I believe this can lead to a better understanding between us. I need you to see me, truly see me for who I aspire to be." The magnitude of what he was undertaking swelled in his chest. Jacob closed his journal and felt the weight lift slightly. His heart thrummed with anticipation. Yet the echoing silence cast a shadow over his newfound clarity. No longer could he be bound by fear, but the leap into the unknown felt awfully consuming. As he lay in bed, excitement intermingled with the shadows of doubt, looming larger with every breath. He knew the coming days would challenge him in ways he couldn't yet predict. Could he manage the dual pursuit of passion and familial connection without breaking under the pressure? Just then, his phone buzzed with a notification. An art competition posting. Fame and success, albeit a distant glimmer, beckoned to him. Inspiration collided with an unsettling choice, a decision awaited. That could shape his approach in untold ways. Fueled by a cyclone of emotions, Jacob sat upright, the dim light of the evening igniting a resolve as fierce as his doubts. Would he take that risk and submit his work? The challenge loomed directly in front of him, fueled by the growing fire of ambition. Or would he remain cocooned in the safety of the familiar? The road ahead appeared uncertain, but the urgency of the moment charged him forward, nails digging into the metaphorical wood of his impending future. Little did he know, the decision he faced would not just impact his career, but also redefine his relationship with Benjamin irrevocably. Would he be brave enough to take that decisive step? Jacob's fingers hovered above the keyboard, the soft glow of the screen illuminating his face in the darkened room. The art competition haunted him, its implications surging like an electric current through his veins. Submitting his work felt monumental. Every brushstroke represented a piece of his soul laid bare, a voice clamoring to be heard amidst the cacophony of expectations around him. That he opened the submission page and stared blankly at the form, sweat beading on his brow. Would this be the moment that changed everything? The weight of his potential loomed, heavy yet enticing, dragging him forward into the vast unknown of his ambitions. "I can do this," he whispered, though uncertainty clenched tightly around his heart. The nagging doubt lingered, like a whispering echo, urging him to reconsider. What if his work fell flat? What if it wasn't good enough? The thought spiraled into a sequence of grim possibilities, but beneath it all, a quiet defiance stirred. Jacob exhaled deeply, attempting to clear the venomous swirl of self-doubt. He recalled his earlier letter to Benjamin, the way he had poured his heart onto the page as if carving a path forged from vulnerability. That had been a moment of resolve, a beacon guiding him. He typed out the title of his latest piece, a reflection of all he had dreamed of becoming, a title he hoped would resonate more than an echo fading into silence. "Nature's Whispers," he typed, taking a moment to breathe as memories of his sketches flooded back. The vibrant colors, the chain of emotions intertwined with each canvas, it was more than just art to him. It was his identity. But then a thought pierced through his clarity, sharp and penetrating. Would his father's response mirror the scrutiny he felt within himself? Would this thrill of creation be matched with disapproval, or worse, indifference? It gnawed at him, potent and compelling. Drawing in a breath as if inhaling courage, he pressed on. The next section required a statement about his inspiration. Jacob paused, heart racing. He thought of the gallery he had visited, the conversations with other artists, and the sheer joy that accompanied unearthing hidden talents in forgotten corners of the city. He began to type. Art is a mirror reflecting my journey. Through color and form, I explore the worlds within me. Capturing fleeting moments I feared to lose, words cascaded onto the page, unfiltered, resonating with an authenticity he had long stifled. The satisfaction surged within him, igniting a determination he didn't know he possessed. Each letter bolstered his resolve, pushing against the suffocating weight of external expectations. He was articulate in expressing himself. He could share snippets of his life journey through art. As he crafted phrases that drove purpose into his ambitions, a small smile crept across his face. His father's discontent echoed weaker in the presence of self-assertion. Before he could talk himself out of it, he scrolled to the end of the page. The button that would send his work into the void stared back at him, a precipice between safety and risk. It was a final test of his commitment to his aspirations. Fingers trembling, he pressed the submit button, feeling a rush of adrenaline wash over him. The task was complete, but chaos still danced in his chest. He had put forward a piece of himself, an artistry that was uniquely Jacob, a step into his future that could no longer be taken back. In that moment, time stretched, uncertainty shrank, and clarity dawned like a bright morning light. Yet, deep inside lingered a gnawing question. If he could take such a monumental step, what would it mean upon facing Benjamin again? Would the tides change or merely stir the waters? As he leaned back against the chair, the realization that his journey had only just begun flickered amid the quiet aftermath of submission. He had forged a connection with himself, a truer expression waiting to be acknowledged. But in the silence that followed, Jacob's thoughts circled back. The moment of truth with Benjamin loomed closer as he considered the weight of his next steps to confront his father. How would he ever find the courage to reconcile his ambitions with his family's expectations? The days following the submission felt like an exhale, a moment suspended in time where Jacob reflected on the pulse of his decisions. He experienced a strange mix of adrenaline and anticipation, each painting taking on new significance, becoming conversations within himself that deepened his understanding of who he was and what he was willing to fight for. Amidst this internal dialogue, the looming confrontation with Benjamin transformed from a shadow into a solid figure. Jacob felt the weight of expectations tug at him, each moment delaying the inevitable push. The urgency to act mounted as he recognized that clarity alone would not suffice. Action was paramount. One evening, finding himself restless, he picked up a small sketchbook. It was tattered yet intimate, each page a testament to his artistic exploration. Rough sketches, errant thoughts, unfiltered musings from the corners of his mind. Here he could control the narrative, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around him. As he flipped through the pages, Jacob's heartbeat quickened at the thought of the uncharted territory he was ready to navigate. He could visualize a dialogue with Benjamin, one free of the constraints of imposed expectations. The idea excited him. He envisioned standing opposite his father, not brimming with frustration or resentment, but filled with an authenticity that demanded respect. Yet, a shadow of doubt creeped back. Could he present that authenticity without faltering? His pencil scuttled across the page, sketching outlines that echoed his thoughts. He drew not just for escapism but as preparation. Each stroke solidified his resolve, bringing him closer to the core of his convictions. Suddenly, the idea of facing his father didn't feel like a daunting wall. Instead, it transformed into an opportunity to mount the summit of their relationship. Days turned into a week as Jacob continued to explore various concepts for art that would drive his narrative home. He immersed himself in galleries, conversed with artists, and experimented with techniques that felt like extensions of himself. All the while, a singular thought burned in the background. The time had come to face Benjamin. In this quiet madness, he devised a concrete plan. Rather than confronting Benjamin with a confrontational approach, Jacob considered inviting him into his artistic journey. He envisioned a small exhibition, a display of his current work wrapped around the theme of connection. Such a presentation would inherently weave their relationship into its very fabric, providing a natural backdrop for the conversation he desperately wanted to have. However, self-doubt still lingered. The question buzzed incessantly. Would Benjamin come? Would he care? Anxiety smothered him, but he recognized that the task ahead was about more than approval. It was about reclaiming his narrative and asserting his identity. On the day Jacob finally reached out to Benjamin, his heart raced. He sent a text inviting his father to an informal exhibition of his latest works, fully aware this could crack open decades of unspoken conflict and expectations. It lay heavy in the air, waiting to be acknowledged or dismissed. With the invitation sent, an eerie calm enveloped Jacob. He had made the choice to materialize his ambitions before the man who shaped so much of his self-doubt. No longer did he wish to hide. He wanted Benjamin to see him not just as his son, but as an artist with dreams and desires worth pursuing. But even as the invitation hung in the digital ether, uncertainty drummed loudly in Jacob's ears. Would his art bridge the distance between them? Or would it reveal deeper fractures in their relationship? As the clock ticked softly in the background, anticipation swirled thicker than before, with every unfurling moment promising revelations ahead. The day loomed closer and the question remained. Could Jacob not only embody his truth but also illuminate it for the man who mattered most? The silence after sending the invitation wrapped around Jacob, heavy but oddly energizing. He spent the next few days diving deeper into his art, each brushstroke a form of meditation, pushing him into uncharted emotional territories. The act of creation became a lifeline, tethering him to a purpose greater than mere survival. Yet, the looming date of the exhibition gnawed at the edges of his peace like a relentless tide. Jacob couldn't escape the anxiety that fluttered in his stomach, a mixture of dread and hope dancing at the surface. The hours morphed into an endless loop of preparation, hanging each piece, considering the right placements and those fleeting details that could speak volumes about his narrative. It felt more than just arranging art. He was carefully curating a story, one that spoke of where he had been, who he had become, and where he hoped to go. As each day passed, the fear of rejection morphed into a backdrop for the creativity blossoming within him. The moment Benjamin stepped through the door must be pivotal. Jacob envisioned the confrontation fraught with potential. Each piece completed offered a sense of control over the situation, one dialogue painting after another, each capturing threads of his journey toward self-acceptance. The night before the exhibition, Jacob found himself pacing his small studio, shadows stretching in the lamp's light. The weight of expectations felt tangible, as if the air strained under its pressure. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, a reflection marked by determination and fear intertwined. His pulse quickened. Was he truly prepared to unveil himself before his father? Suddenly, he felt the spark of inspiration crash over him. Grabbing his sketchbook, he began crafting a new piece, a simple yet profound concept depicting a bridge. It represented connection, an emotional link between his past and the present. The bygone years with Benjamin stretched taut over untenable gaps. Each brushstroke embodied his hope for understanding, a plea for compassion that transcended distance. That piece would encapsulate everything he wanted to convey. It wouldn't be loud or confrontational. Instead, it would whisper truths he yearned to express, an olive branch inviting dialogue rather than conflict. Morning dawned with a bluster. Jacob's heart thrummed wildly within him, fueled by an overwhelming cocktail of nerves and excitement. As he arrived at the gallery to finalize arrangements, he scrutinized the meticulously placed artwork one last time. Each piece increasingly felt like a part of him, no longer just canvases but extensions of his psyche laid bare before strangers and, ultimately, Benjamin himself. And then, as the gallery began to fill, each face a reflection of fleeting moments of curiosity and judgment, he noticed a familiar figure standing just outside the entrance. His breath hitched at the sight of his father, uncertain yet resolute, staring at the vibrant colors splashed across the canvases. The moment stretched as Jacob's resolve momentarily flickered, confronting him with the reality of vulnerability. He felt stripped bare, entirely exposed to the man who had shaped his narrative, for better or worse. Would Benjamin step forward? Would he engage with the very essence of Jacob's struggle portrayed through the brushstrokes he had passionately laid down? Jacob took a deep breath, summoning the courage bubbling within. It was time. This was not just an exhibition. This was his voice, roaring into the silence of their fractured existence, navigating the delicate balance between love and pain. As he approached Benjamin, a thought crystallized. Whatever happened next could redefine everything. The pivotal question loomed: could Jacob articulate a connection deep enough to transform their estranged hearts? Or would this meeting become just another chapter in their tumultuous story? Jacob felt the weight of his father's gaze like a physical force, both a comfort and a shackle. An invitation had been extended, but now, facing Benjamin, it felt like a chasm remained unbridged. As he walked towards him, each step was laden with potential. His father could either embrace this potential for communication or retreat further into the shadows cast by years of unspoken words. The gallery buzzed with energy, voices weaving in and out like errant threads. But Jacob's world narrowed to the intimate space between him and Benjamin, a fragile tether suspended between hope and fear. The canvases hung around them became witnesses to this moment, his emotions woven into the fabric of their colors and textures. "Dad," Jacob started, his voice a tentative whisper yet yearning for resonance. "I wanted you to see my work." He gestured toward the nearest painting, a tumultuous piece depicting storms crashing against jagged cliffs, a visceral portrayal of his inner turmoil. Benjamin's eyes flickered, betraying a deep well of uncertainty. "You've changed," he replied, the words laced with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The comment stung, a reminder that the distance between them had not only been emotional, but also a question of understanding. "Yes," Jacob said, feeling a swell of determination pushing against the anxiety. "I've worked through a lot. It's been a journey." He could feel the fear creeping in again. It weighed down his thoughts, but he pressed on. "I wanted to show you everything, the pain, the hope." A glimmer of recognition passed over Benjamin's face, and for the first time, Jacob glimpsed a possibility of connection. Yet, the nagging voice in his head warned him that this moment was not enough to erase years of misunderstanding. Jacob forced himself to push through the self-doubt swirling inside. "Look at this one," he said, moving toward the bridge piece he had finalized this morning. "It's about connection. About reaching across the gaps we've created." He could almost feel the pulse of the artwork, the careful brushstrokes imbued with an energy of revitalized trust. Benjamin stepped closer, examining the piece intently. The father's silence stretched painfully, punctuated only by the soft hum of conversations echoing around them. Jacob held his breath, acutely aware that they stood at a crossroads where past grievances could either disintegrate or solidify into a renewed understanding. "I never knew you felt this way," Benjamin finally admitted, his voice low yet resonating like a bell that had struck after years of neglect. The admission fell heavy between them, each word layered with the burden of countless unspoken regrets. "It wasn't easy for me to share," Jacob confessed, his hands trembling slightly. "I was afraid you'd just see weakness." The vulnerability in his words was almost suffocating, yet liberating. For the first time he realized he was no longer seeking his father's approval, but rather desiring a meaningful dialogue, a chance for clarity in their chaotic relationship. Benjamin's brow furrowed, attention betraying unexamined emotions. What lay under that exterior? Regret? Resentment? Perhaps? Benjamin began, his voice softer. "I didn't see the struggles. I only ever saw what I wanted." In that moment a shift occurred. The atmosphere held a new charge, a whisper of reconciliation. Jacob's thoughts raced, contemplating the enormity of his father's reflections. Could this be the beginning of a dialogue that transcended their past? But just as a spark ignited between them, the gallery door swung open, and a rush of attendees flooded inside. It was as if the moment had been stolen, a tide sweeping away the opportunity to engage more deeply. Jacob felt a fizzling unease. Fear threatened to claw at the newfound hope. Jacob shared a fleeting glance at Benjamin, their tentative connection hovering in the balance. And yet the urgency pulsed within him. What if this fleeting moment was the precursor to something far more profound? Could he grasp the fleeting opportunity to cultivate a deeper understanding before it drifted away? As the noise engulfed them, Jacob knew the conversation had only just begun. He couldn't afford to turn away now. The real journey would start here, where years of silence could finally shatter. As he steeled his resolve, one question hung over him. Would they be brave enough to redefine their relationship muddled in the nuances of love, loss, and fierce longing? In that moment, as eyes flickered past and laughter echoed, Jacob understood that vulnerability was not just about sharing pain, but about daring to forge connections anew. And yet, as he looked back at his father, he felt the shadows of the past looming once again. Would they find their way out together? Or would they remain trapped in the echo of each other's absence? Days passed, their uncertainty weaving a delicate tension around both Jacob and his father. The gallery had become their battleground, a place where the potential for connection lingered just out of reach, yet flickered with the hope of new beginnings. Each time Benjamin visited the exhibition, he would stand back, observing with a distant gaze that spoke volumes. Jacob sensed change. His father was grappling with emotions buried under years of family legacy and expectation. One afternoon, as the sun cast warm glints on the gallery's polished floor, Jacob found himself arranging the pieces, his hands steady yet alive with anticipation. The gentle thrum of creative energy coursed through him, grounding him before the storm of confrontation he knew they would eventually face. Among the vibrant artworks, the bridge painting hung prominently, its colors intertwined like their strained relationship. "Can I see you for a moment?" Benjamin's voice cut through the ambient noise, and Jacob turned, surprised to find his father stepping closer. He swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and exhilaration flooding him at the thought of genuine dialogue. "Of course," Jacob replied, heart racing as he gestured toward a small alcove adorned with more intimate pieces, echoes of dreams and struggles captured in every stroke. As they withdrew from the curiosity of the patrons, Jacob felt the air shift. "I've thought a lot about what you shared," Benjamin began, his tone measured yet heavier, laden with emotion long silenced. "And I realize I've failed to see you for who you really are. I only focused on what you could achieve in my eyes, not what you wanted for yourself." The honesty in his father's words cracked something wide open within Jacob. A spark of validation ignited as he appreciated the depth of Benjamin's vulnerability. "Dad, I don't want to just uphold a legacy. I want to create one of my own, one that represents my journey." Jacob knew this was the moment. He could either retreat into the familiar shadows or step into the light of authenticity. "I never wanted you trapped, son," Benjamin confessed, rubbing the back of his neck, his gaze falling on the paintings as if searching for answers within their textures. "I was afraid you wouldn't be able to handle the weight of our name, the expectations that come with it." Jacob took a deep breath. "But I have to find my own way. Embracing who I am means confronting my fears, not hiding from them." His father nodded slowly, processing Jacob's conviction. "While I always believed in upward mobility, I never envisioned it could lead to creativity, to art. I thought success was built on legacy, money, status, but I see now that fulfillment runs far deeper." The acknowledgement hung in the air, charged and transformative. Jacob sensed a profound shift in his father's demeanor, an inkling of acceptance beginning to unfurl. Slowly, Benjamin stepped closer to Jacob, studying his son's face as if recognizing a stranger for the first time. "You're right. Perhaps I've also built walls around myself. I felt the pressure to maintain a firm hold on the family brand, but now I wonder if I've confused ambition with identity." "Dad, it's never too late," Jacob responded, heart surging at this newfound openness. "You can allow room for exploration too, for connection over expectation." Holding his father's gaze, Jacob felt the grounding force of their mutual acceptance. Benjamin inhaled deeply, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Perhaps it's time for both of us to redefine success. What do you think we can build together?" Suddenly, hope unfurled, vibrant and powerful. They could forge an understanding that transcended their past grievances. "I think we can create a future where we support each other's journeys. Not just as father and son, but as individuals exploring our passions." A smile broke across Benjamin's face, a genuine expression of tenderness in a world they had struggled to navigate. "Let us start that journey together, shall we?" Jacob nodded, heart swelling with unadulterated affirmation. They both stood on the brink of transformation, poised to conquer the lingering shadows of familial pressure. As father and son, they were ready to walk hand in hand across the bridge of reconciliation. Each afternoon thereafter, they visited the exhibition, combining their distinct visions and passions. Jacob shared insights on art, each piece a glimpse into his evolving identity, while Benjamin spoke candidly about the generational weight of expectations. They found their rhythm in each interaction, weaving shared dreams and aspirations into connective conversations. No longer defined solely by legacy, they began to explore the essence of who they could be together. With time and dedication, the gallery became not just a showcase of Jacob's artistry, but a metaphorical canvas for a renewed relationship. And as they pushed against the currents of expectation, Jacob discovered the solid confidence he had long sought, rooted in his identity. Meanwhile, Benjamin began to understand that true success embraced the individuality of each family member, breathing life and vibrancy into their shared legacy. Empowered by this journey, Jacob submitted an artistic proposal for a community event, a chance to teach expression through art to others. It was an achievement born from his newly recognized voice, and both he and Benjamin would participate as equal partners. As they ventured into this new project, Jacob reveled in the accomplishment of emerging as an empowered creator, while also honoring the growth Benjamin had undergone. In this perfect fusion of growth, they established a foundation that not only celebrated their accomplishments but also respected the journey each had forged. The weight of expectation no longer shackled their spirits. Instead, they emerged resilient, invigorated by a renewed sense of purpose. They had learned to pave their paths, each step resonating with the knowledge that they could both achieve their dreams without surrendering to the burdens of their past. Reflecting on their journey, Jacob found himself enveloped in deep satisfaction. He had conquered the waves of fear, transforming estrangement into connection. Now solidly grounded in his identity and recognized for his competence, he knew he had built more than merely a future. He had crafted a relationship rooted in understanding, support, and above all love. Now was the time to act. You need to subscribe now to our channel, so you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Comment your reactions and theories about Jacob and Benjamin's incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.